I saw Jesus, and he said, I come to bring you a shield and a sword, but to be able to carry the shield and the sword, you have to give me your burdens.
Hello, and welcome to Ladies Uplift Circle, the podcast. Today we got to speak with Sister Lucy DeCaro about her life. God has blessed her with such amazing experiences throughout her lifetime. So those are really a blessing to hear about. And she also gives us some advice on how to live a higher spiritual life and walk closer to God throughout our life. So we hope you enjoy.
Hi, Sister Lucy. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited to hear about who you are and also your experiences while in the church. So if you don't mind, if you can introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little background of joining the church and maybe your baptism.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here. Nice to be with you, sisters. Most people know me because I've been around the church all my life, but I'm Lucy DeCaro and currently from the Lindsay branch. I was raised in the church. You know, a lot of people say it's value to be raised in the church because you know the Spirit of God all your life. And some people who come later say, oh, it's such a gift to discover the church. I don't know which one is better, but I'm thankful to have been raised in the church. And I was raised in the San Fernando Valley branch, which doesn't exist anymore. They've moved to Simi. It's the Simi branch now. But in the San Fernando Valley, we have a lot of wonderful experiences. So I've been around experiences in the church since I was born. I'm thankful for that. And I think having God in my life has made everything better. You travel the road that God has for you, and it's a nice journey because He's with you every step of the way. We moved from the San Fernando Valley up to the Lindsay area when I was 13 years old. And right after that, they had the very first California campout. They had other campouts in other areas, but we had our first California campout. And I was 14 at the time, close to my 15th birthday, but I was 14 at the time, and I got baptized at the very first California campout. And the second California campout, I met Tony. So campouts hold a special place in my heart.
Oh, that's beautiful. And then you also mentioned that you had a dream early on in your spiritual life. So we'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, let me preface that by saying it was a very spiritual time in the church, and it was back in '79, I believe. And we just came back from a camp out, and everybody was on a spiritual high. I don't know if you experienced that feeling. You're on the spiritual high, and you just want the blessings to continue. Because when the saints are together for days at a time, the blessings just build and build and build. And that's how it was coming back from camp out. And I was, we were doing a lot of praying at that camp out. There was a just wonderful experience, if I could just interject that right here. At one of the night meetings, we were having a beautiful meeting, and Brother Joe Lavavel stood up and he said, "There's a messenger of God coming down the aisle." And Brother Jim got up and called him by name. He said, "Nephi." And it was an experience like I never felt before. As this personage walked forward, because I was towards the front, you could hear the crowd break down and cry as he was walking forward. The Spirit of God followed this man to the front. So was that kind of those kind of experiences going on?
The following experience touches on the three Nephites, which references three men of God. In 3 Nephi chapter 28 of the Book of Mormon, Jesus was with the 12 disciples in America and granted them their spiritual desires. 3 men asked to live until Jesus is coming again and are believed to still walk the earth today as translated beings. Some members of the church have had experiences meeting and interacting with the 3 Nephites.
And so I was praying because people were seeing the 3 Nephites at the time. And if you hear a lot of stories about the 3 Nephites, people go, "I saw it, but I didn't know there were 3 Nephites till they were gone." And so I was praying, "Lord, I want to see the 3 Nephites, but I want to know them when I see them, not after they've gone." So I prayed, "Lord, what do I need to do to see the 3 Nephites?" And I had a dream, November the 12th, 1979. If you don't mind, I'm going to refer to the dream here so I can remember it all. I found myself sitting in front of a man. He was in a big chair, and I was sitting at his feet. And I knew he wasn't Jesus or God or Moses or anybody like that, but I knew he was a spiritual man. And so I was talking to him about my spiritual desires and all the blessings that we've been having since the camp. And I explained to him that, we wanted these blessings to continue. And I said, because we've been so blessed. And he said, greater things are in store for those who love and serve God and remain faithful. If he never said anything else, that was enough to satisfy me for a long, long time. But we spoke about gifts, the gifts of the Spirit, and I always found it difficult because if you have a gift, it's hard to talk about your gift and be humble. It's hard to say, I had a vision, I had a dream, I heard the Lord's voice without sounding boastful. And so I always struggled with that. And so I was talking to this man about that, and he said to desire the gifts. He said, we not only spoke of the need for the gifts, but the desire of the gifts. We discussed how some people feared the gifts because of what other people think. And he said to me, be not afraid of the gifts, desire them. God is just, and woe be unto those that chastise the saints. So he said, I'm going to give you gifts if you use them. It's like the talents in the bush. If you hide your talents, they're not going to grow. But if you use them, he'll give you more. We began to speak of fasting and praying and how it's good for the spiritual soul. And he said it purifies our spiritual soul, and we need to do that so God could give us the things that are in store for us. He says, when you ask God, ask with confidence that he's going to answer you. He loves you, and he's waiting upon you so he could bless you. I related to him the strong desire of my heart about seeing the three Nephites. And I told him I wanted to recognize them when I see them. And he said, I have been praying for, I said, I was praying for this for a long time. And so have many of the brothers and sisters. And he said, when you pray, don't pray, I want to see the three Nephites. He said, pray, what must I do to see the three Nephites? And he said, apply this to all of what you want spiritually in your life. If you want something, don't pray that you want it. Pray, what must I do to receive it? Which is an interesting concept I never thought of before. And he says, Satan's going to be there to discourage you, but don't be discouraged because we serve a stronger power. We spoke of many things, of which I cannot recall, and some I could. And he stressed the importance of preparation. We have to be prepared for God's opportunities. And then I awoke. And I told this dream to Brother Jim LaValvo. And he said the Spirit spoke to him and told him that the man I was talking to was one of the three Nephites. So that was cool. So that kind of was a foundation. It was early in my spiritual life. And that was kind of a foundation that I based a lot of things on as I matured in the gospel.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Sounds so cool because the dream was like you had a full conversation. It sounds like you were able to get so much information, and something powerful that stuck with me when we read it earlier was that you said, the man said, don't ask what you want, but ask what you must do. And I think that's something good for us to reflect on ourselves as what must we do in our walk with God, because it is a walk, it's a relationship, right, with God. It's not a one-way street. So
absolutely. And it's like, if you think about your children, you don't want to just give to them. First of all, it's nice when they ask and ask politely, and it's nice when they're grateful. And I think spiritually we need to be that. We need to be thankful for the healings, for the experiences and things that God gives us. Because it's just like when you're a little kid, if you're just ungrateful, nobody wants to bless you with anything. Nobody wants to give you anything. I think it's the same way with God. If he blesses us, he wants us to share that information. So yeah, it's important. Think about it as relationship with God. He knows your heart. He knows what you want, but he wants you to ask, and ask with a heart believing. If you believe it, you'll receive it. I truly believe that statement. I truly do.
I have so many thoughts about this dream. To piggyback off of the thought that you both have mentioned about, like, don't ask God, I want this. Ask, what can I do to have this? I have been thinking on and praying about this topic actually, about faith, because I have faith that God can do anything, right? But we also know that God does things in His will. Sometimes we ask and the answer is no. So sometimes I'm like, how much do I ask for one specific thing versus saying, God, whatever you want, right? And I almost feel like your dream was God answering me a little bit. That exact part. Don't ask that you want it. Ask, what do I need to do, Lord, to have this?
And He answers us, not always in the way that we want. And sometimes when He says no, it's because He has greater blessings for us that He wants to bless us with. So you just got to let Him take care of you, because He will.
Absolutely. One scripture also that I thought of in listening to your dream was 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9. And it's almost exactly what he says to you. But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him.
Amen. Yeah.
So since that was a dream that would happen in early in your spiritual life, I'm sure that's impacted you and strengthened your walk with God along the way. I know you mentioned you're an ordained deaconess. Has that faith? Are there any experiences or that specific experience strengthen your walk when you were called a deaconess?
Absolutely. It strengthened me in a lot of ways. And when it says we talked for a long time, and I talked with this man for a long time in this dream, and there were many things that I couldn't remember to relate, but I felt them in my soul. So I think God planted some things, and I think that helped develop my spiritual life. I learned very young that you need to trust God, and it's hard to do sometimes when things happen in our lives. But if we trust God, He'll take care of us. And my grandmother, interesting. My mother was a deaconess, and both of my grandmothers were deaconesses. And my grandma Cavallero died before we left LA, so I was 12 or 13 when my grandmother died. And so after at camp out, I got baptized. I met Tony. Then I had the dream, and then they called me a deaconess. And in my head, I was going, I wonder if Grandma knows all the things that are. I wonder if she knows I got baptized, because she really, wanted me to get baptized. I wonder if she knows. And I had this dream. We were in the Valley Branch, the San Fernando Valley Branch. We were in the dream, and I was up front with some people singing a hymn from our Saints hymnal, to the work, we are servants of God. Let us follow the path that our Savior had trod. And as I was up there singing, the back doors opened and a bright light came through. And in comes my grandmother. And I went back. I said, Grandma, I said, have you heard? And I start telling her I got baptized. And she didn't say too much. She just nodded her head. And she held out a little plant, a little potted plant. And she goes, this is for you. You need to learn how to take care of it. And she was pulling off the dead leaves, and she handed with such care. She handed me this plant, and it was like her telling me, "This is your path. You're going to become a deaconess, and you need to take care of the plant that it might stay alive." So that was one of the strongest experiences that I can remember from being taken the office of the ordained deaconess. And thankfully, the Lord called me.
That's so special that you have an experience about that, because our church is the only church I know of that ordains deaconesses. There's probably more out there, but only one I know of. And it's obviously women. So it's sweet to know, it is a spiritual office that God actually calls women to do his work. And that's beautiful that he gave that dream to you. And it's so nice that it was like your grandmother sort of passing the torch to you.
Yeah.
Were there any other thoughts when you were being called a deaconess, like personally, or anything that stuck to you till now, or that have helped you in your role as deaconess?
I think for everyone, some people want other people to have the experiences, and some people say I need to have my own experience. And the Lord blessed me with both. But more importantly, I asked him, and I felt his reassurance that he would be with me. I felt that. And if I didn't feel that, I would not have taken the ordination. I would not have done it. But I felt his his reassurance. So that's why I did. And I think everybody has to look within themselves and not go, oh, they want me to be ordained the deaconess. They need to know that it's a lot of work and responsibility, because it's not just setting the table. It's not just, taking care of feet washing. It's going to visit the sick. It's taking the food to people who need it, the shut-ins and stuff. It's being a light. It's being a light. So it's a constant thing. But I'm thankful. I feel blessed.
That reminds me of a scripture in Matthew chapter 20, verses 26 through 28. But it shall not be so among you, but whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. And whosoever will be chief among you, let him be your servant. Even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many. This verse is obviously speaking more specifically about ministers, but it also ties into what you were saying about when you were called to be a deaconess. It's not something that you should think highly of yourself of, oh, they chose me out of everyone, right? No, God's calling you to be the servant, the lowly of his people, to serve the rest of his people. So
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
You've had so many beautiful experiences. I think the next one, probably in the timeline, would be the vision that you had during sacrament. Would you like to share that with us?
Yeah, this was an interesting thing, because I've never had a vision before, and we were in our church service in little old Lindsay. We were having sacrament, and Tony called "I Surrender All," which is not a typical sacrament hymn, but we were singing "I Surrender All." And during the song, I just felt I was removed from what was going on. I did the bread. I remember taking the bread, but I was in a zone, a spiritual zone, if you might say. And when we were start singing the last verse, when they were getting ready to pass the wine, now I feel the sacred flame, all the joy of full salvation, glory, glory to his name. That verse, I saw in the front of the church, like a box, like a frame, and I saw Jesus standing in the frame. And then it opened up. It just opened up across the pulpit, and I was just wow. And Jesus said, "I've come to ask you to give me your burdens." He said, "I have for you," and he pointed towards the piano. And on the piano were swords, glowing white swords that were stacked on the piano, and against the piano were these big shields, glowing white again, stacked up against the piano. And he said, "I come to bring you a shield and a sword, but to be able to carry the shield and the sword, you have to give me your burdens, because you can't hold your burdens and hold the shield of faith and the sword of righteousness. You can't hold them both. So you need to give me your burdens so I could give you these." And it was interesting, because I felt somebody. So he said, "Come up and give me your burdens and receive your shield and your sword." And I felt somebody walk by me. And it was interesting enough. It was a sister who called me that morning and said, "I'm not coming to church. I'm not feeling right on spiritually. I got some issues going on, and I'm not feeling good. So I won't be coming to church today." This person was the first person to pass me to go up there to the Lord, and she gave the Lord her burdens, and he walked her over and he handed her the sword and the shield, and one by one a branch went up there. And my mom was sitting behind me. My mom was alive at the time, and she was sitting behind me. And she said, "I was wondering what you were doing." She says, "I lunged forward." It was when I physically got up to go forward. She saw me lunge forward. I didn't physically get up, but she saw me lunge forward. That's when I got up in the experience and walked up front to get my shield and my sword. And it was just a great experience to know that the Lord cares about our burdens, and we can't carry our burdens. We have to live the best life we can, but a lot of times we get hung up on things that are happening in our lives. And if we share them with the Lord, He will gladly help us carry those burdens. All to Jesus I surrender. Now I feel Thy sacred flame. Oh, the joy of full salvation. Glory, glory to His name. That was the part of the hymn that we were singing when I saw the vision. I'm so thankful for it. I never had another one since, but I had that one. It was incredible.
You mentioned, that you had to set your burdens down to get this shield and the sword. Do you feel like there was anything in your life, if you feel comfortable sharing, that you feel is the reason that God gave that specific vision to you?
At the time, I did. He is literally. I gave them to him, and it's literally has left my mind. But I know at the time of the experience, I knew what I had to give up. I knew what I had to bring to him and hand him.
It's even more powerful that you say that at the time you knew exactly what you're giving to him, but right now, like, or after it happened, you can't recall what that was. So your vision was God speaking to you because he did take that away once you went up and you picked up your shield and your sword. The fact that what your burden was literally left your mind at that point. Jesus did take it for you. Right? That's
Exactly.
extremely powerful. Yeah.
Exactly. He took it away, and that's the whole purpose. He took it away, and he is willing to do that for everybody if you're willing to surrender. Yeah, a lot of times we carry those burdens around. And I used to tell my students, I said, when you hold a grudge, like if you're holding a grudge on somebody, it's like you're holding the hot coal in your hand. They don't know what's going on. They don't even probably remember that they hurt you. But you not getting over that burden or asking them why that happened, you're the one carrying the hot coal in your hand. You got to release that hot coal. You're the one suffering um, if you carry a burden with you. So you gotta release that and give it to the Lord. And He takes it away. He certainly takes it away.
Absolutely. Um, you also mentioned that you've heard the voice of the Lord a few times, which is something I would love to hear myself, but then I'd love to hear your experiences as well if you want to share.
Again, it was incredible. And I didn't hear an audible voice, but when you think about something, you're thinking about it. It's in your voice, in your head. When God speaks to your spirit, He speaks, and it's not you. You know some a message is being given to you in your spirit, and that's what I felt these 3 times. Um, Way before you 2 young ladies were born, there was a airplane crash in North Park over there. Soon after that, I was freaked out about flying and having people I knew fly because that really scared me because it really impacted me because it was right there in San Diego and everything. Shortly after that, we had a couple come out from back east. They were on their way to Hawaii, and they stopped to visit my in-laws because they knew them from back in Detroit days. Uh, Frank and Virginia Conti, they came out, and so we visited with them. They stayed with us for about a week, and then I took them to the airport. Well, I took them to the airport. Back in those days, you could walk your people up to the gate when they got on the plane. They don't stop you like they do now. And so I walked them up to the gate and said goodbye, and they were getting on the plane. And I had a fear for them flying to Hawaii. It was a cloudy day. It looked like it was going to rain. And so when they were getting on the plane, I was praying, Lord, watch over them. Take care of them. And I heard this voice that said, and these exact words, I'll never forget them. Have no fear. These are my children. Don't you know I have them in the palm of my hand? And just as I heard that voice, the clouds parted and the sun came down on that plane. And it was a silver plane. Of course, it was blowing over there. And that was the first time I went, wow. I knew that it was not of myself. I knew I heard that to my spirit. It was incredible. The second time, I suffered from migraines. I've been suffering from migraines since I was 30 years old. So it's been a long time. And sometimes of the year are better than others. Some days are better than others. And this one Sunday, I had a really bad migraine, and I got anointed, and I got healed. I don't even know who anointed me. I don't remember that at all. But I remember going to work the next day. I was driving to work, and I was thanking the Lord. And I said, Lord, why can't you take these away? Why can't you just take these away? Why do I have to keep suffering with these? And I heard him again. He said, my grace is sufficient. So I never again asked him to take my migraines away. If I have a headache, I asked him to relieve my pain. But I've never asked him to take them away because he told me he's not. And the last one was pretty nice too. It was I was praying for Jerica when she was in the hospital. That really touched me. It really affected me. So I prayed a lot for her. And I remember that night I was going to bed and I was praying for her before I went to bed. And all evening I was praying. And I went to bed. And being an old person, I have to get up during the night. And I was getting up. And as I woke up, I was sitting up to get up out of bed. And so immediately I thought of Jerica again. So I start praying again while I was on my journey to the little girl's room. And as I stood up, I start praying for her again. And I heard a voice that said, Jerica's going to be okay. That's all I heard. Jerica is going to be okay. And I heard it so distinctly that I turned my head to the right because came from right here. It came from right here. I was expecting to see something. That's how strong that experience was in my life. I expected something. Come to find out, after talking to Jerica and Ryan, she was experiencing a reaction to the medication. It was not a good thing that night. And the night that I had that experience, um, she felt a hand on her shoulder while she was going through this experience, going through this reaction from the medication. So I thank God that uh, He reaches out and uses us and blesses us with these experiences so that we can bless the church. So the church understands that He cares about us as people.
That one was powerful because we spoke with Jerica for the podcast and got to hear that. And she mentioned that exact thing, that the night that she felt someone touching her hand, she also knew that someone was from the church was praying for her. So she, like, it was confirmation for her as well that was God letting her know that she was going to be okay as well. So it's amazing that, like, they all connected, and it's confirmation on your end and on her end that He
Exactly.
was speaking to both of you.
Exactly. The Lord says, it's confirming one another. What I did in the morning, I went, okay, what do I do with this information? And I sat down and I sent an email to Brother Jim Huttenberger. And I said, I'm not a person who often hears the voice of the Lord, but I heard it last night and this is what happened. And I just want to let you know so you could pass it on to them. I just want to let you know. I just wanted to share it with somebody. And I immediately got a response that he said, I shared it with Jerica and Ryan, and this is what was going on. And then I heard that she was having that reaction that night. It was that same night. So God uses this. I mean, He connects it. He shows you this just wasn't a fluke. This just wasn't Lucy dreaming in the middle of the night. I spoke to her so she could pass that on. So I'm the one who healed her. It was an incredible experience that she went through.
I like how you say that, like, it wasn't just your voice, like He was confirming it another way. That's also the voice of the Lord when you said you sent off the brother and sister to go on their flight and you were praying, and then you heard the voice of the Lord, and that could have been it, right? But not only did you hear the voice of the Lord, but then you also saw the clouds part and the sun shine down. So that was confirming it. It wasn't just Lucy telling you something, it was God telling you something.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
had an after, like, physical thing you can see as well right after.
Yeah.
That's super cool. I'm like mind blown that you were the sister that had the experience for Sister
Me
Jerica,
too.
because she was our first episode and she told us about that experience, and it's just coincidental, which we know is not real. For those watching the podcast, if you haven't seen Sister Jerica's episode, we'll link it. We'll link it because it's beautiful. Well, I know you mentioned you told Brother Jim, I don't hear the voice of the Lord often, but to us we're like, oh, you have so many
so many.
experiences. It's beautiful.
Well, I'm 70 years old, so I've had a long time to have experience.
Oh. God has really blessed you with all these experiences. Do you ask for them? Like, I know in your dream you mentioned that the Nephite said to you, ask God for these gifts. Is that something that you put into practice, and is the reason that you feel that God gives these experiences to you? Or are there other things that you do or pray for?
I don't pray for the gifts. I don't pray, Lord, I want to hear your voice. But I pray, Lord, let me be useful to you and the church in any way that I can. And I try. It's difficult in life, but I try to stay a spiritual realm in life. And And when I do, I feel that the Lord is able to use you in situations. You know, it's important to just be spiritually ready to accept what the Lord has for you. And He'll use you, whether He's going to give you a dream, whether He's going to give you a vision, whether He's going to speak to you, whether He's just going to direct you to go do a work, a certain work. Then I think the Lord will use you if you're usable, if you're spiritually in tune. And I think staying spiritually in tune is more important than praying for certain things.
Absolutely. Do you have any advice for those who are hoping to be closer to God or how to be spiritually in tune?
Yeah, take time for yourself, your spiritual self. Grow spiritually. Take time to talk to the Lord. It's important, one on one, and I find it's helpful for me to talk out loud. So I do it while I'm driving. I do it, you know, I go in a room by myself and I just talk to the Lord. I go outside somewhere and I just talk to the Lord. For me, it's keeping a connection with the Lord. Lord, I need you. Lord, I'm just thankful today for all you've blessed me with. I'm thankful for the life you've given me. Staying positive is really hard these days with all the craziness that's going on in the world. But I think if we stay positive, that's leading us in the right direction. Stay spiritually well is important. Don't get caught up in the, you know, in the petty stuff in life and the petty stuff in the world. Be on a spiritual plane as often as you can.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. And it's, I know it'll be a blessing to those that hear, because even just that little snippet of advice, I feel like this whole time I've been getting little snippets of advice from a spiritual leader. This whole time listening to you share your experiences, and also just your comments towards those experiences are definitely something to take with us after recording, and I'm sure it's going to be something everyone can take with them too after listening. So thank you. It's a blessing to hear from you.
Thank you. It's like I said at the beginning, life's not an easy journey, but it's a whole lot easier if you walk it with the Lord. Everything's better if you walk that journey with the Lord. And I've tried to do that. I don't always succeed. I'm human. I make mistakes, but I try, and I think the Lord understands that and cares. And I love you girls. You girls are doing a great job, great work. God bless you, and keep up the good work.